Hey guys, and welcome to Toby Talks Tech. I'm Toby, and today we're going to talk some tech. Going for a job interview, be that on the phone or in person, can be pretty scary. Personally, I've changed my job numerous times, so I've gone through the full process quite a few times already, and I've actually conducted probably around 100 or so developer interviews in my time, from junior all the way up through the senior. This video is not going to be specific to the IT industry, but keep in mind that my personal experience obviously is primarily within the IT industry. But in this video, I want to give you my top 10 tips to get you through a job interview. Tip number 1, be honest. Now, you may find it funny that I even have to mention this, but one of the quickest ways and one of the most common reasons why people tank their job interview is they're not being honest and upfront. This usually doesn't happen out of malicious intent, it's just they're being asked the question about, have you used this technology or used these tools, or do you have experience in this? And because of the pressure, people feel like, I can't admit that I don't know that, and so they're trying to sneak their way around the question, kind of BS their way through it. However, the people interviewing you will most likely know this subject matter really well, so it's going to be really difficult to pretend you know something that you don't really, against people who got a lot of knowledge in the topic. So the best thing is honestly, just be honest. Just say, oh, I don't know that. Sorry, I haven't heard of that. Oh, sorry, I haven't used that before. There is nothing wrong with admitting that you may not know everything. You know, after all, nobody's perfect. Everybody's going to keep learning, and your employer is going to understand that. Tip number 2. Be inquisitive. Now, this tip really complements the whole theme of being honest. If you're just saying, oh, I don't know that, or I've never used that, it's a bit of a flat response, it's a bit of a, just brush aside kind of answer. What you want to do is you want to say, oh, I haven't heard of that, how does that work? Or, oh, I haven't used that before, how is that similar to maybe something else you've used? So rather than just saying you don't know something, say, I don't know, but show interest, show that you want to understand that it's not just a, oh, I don't know that, I don't really want to deal with it, but that you're keen to learn and expand your knowledge, and by being inquisitive about topics that come up during the interview, you show a huge interest in learning, expanding, and growing into the company and into the role you're applying for. Tip number 3, use your skills outside of work. During almost any interview that I've been a part of, the question will come up of what do you do outside of work, or what do you do in your free time? And you do want to have some interest in the field you're applying to. So for example, if you're applying to the IT industry as a developer, you probably want to have some interest in IT outside of work. You may be reading tech blogs, you may be developing your own software, or following the latest tech trends or hardware or something, just to show I'm actually generally interested in the IT industry outside of just using it to make me money. Same goes for any other industry, be that, financing, maybe you're in accounting or real estate or whatever. Just have an interest in the topic overall, because if you're just there for the job, and if outside of work you do nothing at all related to the job you're applying to, it kind of indicates that you're really just there for the job for the money. You're not in it because you really love it, and not saying it's a deal breaker, but if you have an interest in the whole topic in general, you're going to be a much more attractive candidate. Tip number 4, avoid asking about salary. Now, I'm not saying negotiating your salary is unimportant. I'm just saying that during the job interview, don't bring it up, because it's going to indicate that your focus is, again, just on the money. It's not on doing the job well or learning and expanding your skills and growing into a team. It's just the money. After the interview, there's going to be another phase, assuming that you get through, where you're going to have time to negotiate your rates and your salary. So leave it for that. Just leave it out of the job interview. Tip number 5, learn about the business. No matter which company you're applying for, before the job interview, read up on the company, read up a bit on the history and where they're trying to go, so that during the interview you can again be inquisitive and ask about the business, like what's your future plans for the next 5 years, or what are your current challenges, or where exactly am I going to fit into this? It shows that you're not just short-term, narrow, money focused. You're thinking about the big picture on, how am I going to contribute to the business going forward, and a future employer is going to be highly appreciative. Tip number 6, avoid hollow criticisms. Again, this is a really unappealing trait in potential candidates applying for a job, is when they throw out criticisms of, projects they've worked on, people they've dealt with, tools they've used, or technologies they've encountered, and they're really dismissive of it. They don't really have a reason why they don't like it. It's like, I hate that. I hate that person. I hated that project. It's really negative, and it's not a good thing to do in a job interview, because your future employer is going to try to envision you within their team, in their company, working. And if you have a negative attitude that you bring into the environment, it might be disruptive and not what the employer wants. Now, I'm not saying never criticize anything and just be Mr. Happy Person. All I'm saying is avoid hollow criticisms. It's fine to criticize a situation as long as you have a really good justification and a rounded view on the issue. For example, you may have hated working on a specific project and you say, oh, I didn't really like working there because, it was 12-hour days, but the people were really good, the challenges was great, I learned a lot of things. So you're kind of criticizing, but you're rounding it out. You're not just saying, I hated that project. You have a good justification for things you liked, things you didn't like, and you're showing your employer that you're good at thinking about what happened, thinking about the situation, about the positives and negatives, and how to potentially deal with a similar situation going forward. Tip number 7, know your theory. Now, this may be a little bit more specific to the IT industry, but I would imagine that applies just as much to financing, real estate, investments, or any other job that you may be applying for. Know your theory. Don't just be a sit-down, hands-on doer. Be someone who thinks about the big picture of why am I doing what I'm doing. For example, for a developer, that might be, why am I doing this? How do I ensure that what I'm producing is high quality, it's scalable, it's easy to use, and it integrates within the whole team? And it shows the employer that you're thinking about the big picture, that you understand why you're doing the things that you do. You're not just someone who takes instructions and executes them. You're someone who can be given a problem and you will figure out what's the best approach. You can break it down and implement it, and that is going to be much more valuable to an employer. Tip number 8, ask about the team. Most of the time when you're applying for a job, you will likely be placed in a team, so you will work with other people. In the interview, you will have time to ask your own questions, and one of the really good questions to ask is to ask about your team, your teammates. How big is it going to be? How many, testers are going to be there? How many accountants are going to be there? How many supervisors? How many stakeholders? Because again, it shows that you're not just focusing on your little box where you can do your work. You're thinking about the company, how are you going to fit in, how many people you're going to have to integrate with, and how the whole thing is going to work going forward. Tip number 9, be on time. The people conducting your interview are potentially pretty busy and they're making space in their schedule to fit you in, so be on time. If you're not on time, you're inconveniencing them and you're getting off on a pretty bad start, because when they get into the interview 15-20 minutes late, they're already going to be a bit grumpy, they're going to crunch through harder questions just to kind of get it out of the way. But also, you're implying that you don't really care. If you cared, you would have been on time. Now, there are valid reasons for why you may have been running late, but to a potential employer, it looks really bad, and so cater for it. Just rather be way early than just a little bit late. Always make a good first impression, because it is literally your first step into that company. Tip number 10, be yourself. Now, that may be easier said than done, because especially when people get tense, which happens during phone and personal interviews, they kind of, get into this weird state where they don't want to reveal all the information because they're trying to gauge on what image do I have to project onto my future employer so that they will like me. However, by doing that, you're kind of already putting on a fake persona, and if the employer hires you, they hired you based on the persona you were projecting, so you're going to have to maintain that image. You really want to get the job on the basis of who you are. If you have some quirks, some interesting hobbies, or you have some knowledge gaps, things you haven't done before, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you have a positive attitude and you really want to integrate into the company, you want to learn more and you want to add value. An employer is going to appreciate that much more than you trying to be someone else. And that's all the tips I have for you. Obviously, I'm not going to give you any specific tips regarding the subject matter, because that's going to differ depending on what job you're applying to. But these 10 tips should really give you an advantage when you're going for a phone or personal interview. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like this, please show your support by liking, favoriting and sharing it. Don't forget to subscribe if you do want to see some more cool content. And if you do have any comments, questions or suggestions, just leave them down in the section below. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I will see you later.